Welcome to my one-year owner's review of the 2023 Genesis G70. I bought this car in April of last year and it has been a fantastic car thus far. Now, in this video, I want to share with you guys my thoughts and opinions on having owned this car for 1 year. I also want to talk about some of the issues I've had with it. I have had to have a part replaced under warranty. More on that later in the video. And then lastly, I'm going to share with you guys all the modifications I have done to this car and what I have planned for it in the future. So my G70 is the 2023 year model with the twin turbo V6 motor. It is in the Sport Prestige trim with all-wheel drive. The color of my car is the one and only Siberian Ice, which is no longer a color option for 2024. And it is the main reason that I bought the 2023 year model instead of waiting for the 2024s. I had to have this car in the Siberian Ice color. All right, so the first area of discussion I want to go over is all the issues I've had with this car, because I know that's a hot topic and probably one of the main reasons you're here. So I purchased this car certified pre-owned, and after just 2 months of owning it, my rear brake light quit working, which then caused my blinker to short out and have an issue as well. And something else interesting to share along with this is that my vehicle health diagnostics and things that you can run in the vehicle never showed that there was an issue with my brake light. The only reason I found out about it is because I was filming a video and happened to notice my brake light wasn't working. About a week after my brake light started having problems and I noticed it, then my blinker started to short and have a problem. Now, it wasn't until my blinker started to fail and have a short that my car realized there was a problem. And it would tell me there was a problem with my blinker, but it still did not detect that there was an issue with my brake light, which I feel like is a problem in and of itself. So long story short, I took the car to the dealership. They spent about 3 hours diagnosing it and eventually came back to me and said, this car is throwing an error code that we've never seen before, and it's not even listed in the Genesis database, which I was like, wonderful. She then explains to me, the lady I was working with, she explained to me that normally a car that has been in a wreck will flash them an error code that is, uneligible or doesn't show up in their system. So she questioned me, has this car been in a wreck? And I was like, unless the dealership I bought it from presented me with a false title, which is highly illegal, I was like, no, this car has not been in a wreck. So she really did not want to believe me. And she kept questioning me and did not want to give me this part under warranty because to her knowledge and experience, the only reason this car was giving that error code is because it had potentially been in a wreck. So long story short, they ordered me the part, arrived in about 2 weeks, took the car back to the dealership and they replaced it. And the car has been working perfectly fine ever since then. No further issues with the blinker or the brake light. Now, a second problem I have had on this car literally just occurred while I was in the process of making this video. And that is my headlights have started to get condensation in them. Now, it does state in the owner's manual that this can happen, due to temperature changes, shifts, or whatever. But let's just be realistic here. Your headlights are not supposed to fog up or get condensation in them. That just means that they were not sealed properly. I have never seen this in any of my prior cars that I've owned. And I used to live in the down south, where it's hot and humid, temperatures are changing all the time. Never had an issue with that. Currently, I do not live in a state where there is high humidity or heat or anything at all. So the fact I'm getting condensation within my headlights, kind of concerns me. Now, another issue to mention that I've had with this car over the past year, it's a minor thing that only occurs rarely, but when I am in traffic sitting like at a red light, my parking sensors will randomly activate and they will start flashing yellow like something's getting close to me, or they'll start like flashing and beeping red like something just backed into me. And it's like I'm just sitting here with cars around me that are all stopped. Like, what's the problem? So like I said, this has happened only a handful of times, and I have read on Reddit threads that this is actually a pretty common occurrence with other G70 owners. But again, I want to reiterate, this doesn't happen all the time, and it hasn't happened often enough to where I've taken it into the dealership and been like, hey, I'm having some like major malfunctions with my sensors. I think the last time this happened was probably a few months ago. So again, just getting an idea, it has happened and it is a common problem on G70s, but I don't think it's ever amounted to something substantial in which like the sensors need to be replaced or something. So yeah, that pretty much sums up all the problems I've had with this car in just 1 year. I kind of look at them as more minor issues. And, this car has a 10-year powertrain warranty and a 6-year bumper to bumper. And as long as I'm not having to spend more time at the dealership than, actually driving this car, I don't really care. So hopefully no future issues down the road. So the next hot topic to discuss is real world gas mileage. And a lot of people are very curious about, what kind of gas mileage do you actually get in this car? And with me having a 3.3t, I get around 20 miles per gallon in the city. And on the highway, you're going to average around 30 miles per gallon. So, not that bad for highway driving. City driving, not the best. I did experiment with driving this car in comfort mode around town, and I was only averaging around 17, 18 miles per gallon, which is pretty shoddy. So for that reason, I like to only drive this car in eco mode just because you do get around 20 to 22 miles per gallon in the city. On the highway, I haven't really noticed the difference between comfort or eco. It seems to all just average around 30, 31 miles per gallon. So if you're someone that does a lot of city driving, not the best. If you do a lot of highway driving, you're going to get decent gas mileage. Okay, so the next topic of discussion to go over is the curb appeal of this vehicle and what sort of attention it has garnered me over the years driving this out on the streets. And the reason I say that is because the G70 is not your ordinary everyday looking car. There's nothing else that looks like this vehicle on the road. And for that reason, I've gotten some very interesting inquiries about it. You don't know how many times I've had people ask me if this is a Bentley. You would be flabbergasted of how many people have thought that this car is a Bentley. And I'm like, why, yes, it is. It is the new, affordable, only $50,000 Bentley that they're selling now. It's under the sub brand name of Genesis. Anyway, I've also had people think that it's a Mercedes, and I'm like, guys, just keep inflating my ego, just keep blowing it up. So yeah, exterior design and styling on this car, there's nothing else that looks like it, and it really does look like a really nice, expensive car. And there's probably a reason why people think this is a Bentley, and that's because Genesis hired Bentley designers to design the Genesis lineup. So yeah, just toot my own little horn right there. Toot, toot. So after tooting my own horn, I now wanted to share some of my initial takeaways that I had after driving this car in the first few weeks of ownership. And the biggest thing I noticed with this vehicle is that it's more of a luxury car in how it drives rather than a sports car. I kind of like to describe it as it's about 80% luxury car with about 20% sports car. And the reason I say that is because this car does not feel rough around the edges at all. It feels extremely refined. It is a very smooth ride. You have adaptive suspension and adaptive dampers. And overall, it just is a very posh, quiet, and refined ride. The engine note on this vehicle, if you turn off the fake engine audio, is non existent. It does not make a sound if you turn off the engine audio. And on top of that, the exhaust note on this car, unless you put it in sport mode, is extremely muffled as well. So, in that aspect, you feel like you're driving more of like a nice Mercedes that's very quiet versus like, a sports car that's rough around the edges and has a loud exhaust. That's why I say this car feels more of a luxury car than a sports car. It has more luxury elements to the overall drive experience rather than having more sporty, aggressive engine sound, exhaust note, and all of that to give you more of that sports car experience. Now, that's not to say that you cannot have fun driving this car like a sports car. When you put it into sport mode, this thing seriously comes to life. It really heightens the fake engine audio that's pumped into the cabin, which I've learned to just leave on because if you turn it off, it's just such a boring, quiet drive experience. Like me being a car enthusiast, what makes car driving exciting and fun to me is having that engine note and exhaust note. If I didn't care, I would go buy like a Model 3 Performance if, having a quiet car was what mattered to me. But I got to have those noises. And putting this car in sport mode, yeah, you get some really great fake engine audio, but you also get a really nice stock exhaust note, which if you want to hear, I linked it in the video in the top right hand corner of the screen. And a quick note on the exhaust. One thing I've noticed over the year of driving this car is that it sounds like 10 times better from the outside of the vehicle than it does on the inside. And to explain what I mean by that is I have a friend that also has a G70 with the 3.3t, and he went zooming down the road past me one day, and I was like, holy cow, that thing sounds incredible. I'm like, dude, which exhaust did you put on that? And he was like, I haven't put an exhaust on it. And I'm like, well, that sounds like I've never heard my car sound like that before to just be stock. So yeah, this car sounds totally different from the outside than it does on the inside. And I've never really experienced that with a car before. Like my previous sports cars I came from were BMWs that had dyno exhausts on them. And those, I mean, they sounded just as loud and awesome on the inside, driving them with the windows down as they did hearing it from the outside. So yeah, just an interesting little like takeaway and observation I've noticed over the year, you just kind of, spending time with this car. Now, I did want to make one final commentary regarding the exhaust on this car, and that is I would prefer it to have a better sounding exhaust, to be a little bit louder and a little bit more aggressive. I also would prefer to have and be able to get some kind of gurgles and backfires on downshifts. That's what I'm used to in my previous sports cars, having BMWs and Dynans. I would really love to be able to get that sound out of this engine. And now I get it, it's a V6 versus an inline six, but there are plenty of cars out there with V6 engines that have really good sounding exhaust systems. And that's kind of one of the problems I've run into with this vehicle, having owned it, is even over the past year, I just haven't found any good exhaust options for it out there. There's the ARK, there's June B, there's Shark Racing. There's some strange one I keep seeing pop up in the Reddit threads called Alibaba. I've listened to sound recordings and clips of all those. They all sound a little too ricey and a little too raspy for my liking. Just for context, I cannot stand any type of exhaust that sounds like 1% ricey or raspy. I just can't do it. So all those exhaust options I just mentioned, they just don't do it for me. And I really wish a company like Borla or MBRP would make an exhaust for the G70. MBRP makes an exhaust for the Kia Stinger, which, by the way, is the same exact engine as this car, and it sounds phenomenal. It gives gurgles and backfires on downshifts, and you don't need a tune enabled to get that. So, yeah, that's just kind of my 2 cents on the whole like exhaust discussion I wanted to include in here, and just kind of, share my findings and or frustration with the lack thereof of decent exhaust options for this car. However, it's not all doom and gloom when it comes to the performance and aftermarket parts for this car, because Genesis has officially announced their new performance sub-brand line, which is called MAGMA. That is their answer to, Mercedes AMG, BMW M Division, Audi RS. So essentially MAGMA is going to be the AMG of Genesis. And they have confirmed that they will be releasing a MAGMA edition of every vehicle in their lineup. So what that means, unless they discontinue the G70 in the next few years, is that they will be releasing basically an AMG version of the Genesis G70 that we can expect sometime in the future. They have already released a MAGMA version of the G80, which is currently only for sale in the Middle East, which kind of sucks. But yeah, I am super excited for a potential MAGMA version of the G70 in the future, because my only gripe and complaint with this car is that it's just not sporty and performance-y enough for me. I really would prefer it to be more along the lines of like an M3 or M4, but still retain that Genesis styling and sexiness. I don't know if I mentioned it before in the video, I probably have, but in my opinion, Genesis has the best looking vehicles on the road. They have the absolute best, hands down best interiors of any vehicle in and around its price point. So for that reason, I want to try and stick with Genesis, just because I love how their cars look. Their design department is absolutely killing it, and I want to give them my business. And if they can produce a MAGMA G70 that's something along the lines of like an M2, M3 or whatever, I think that would be honestly glorious, because like I said, my biggest gripe and complaint with this car is I just wish it was more along the lines of a performance car. And if you look at the G80, they added a lot of extra really cool like spoilers, body molding and stuff. And it does have a special exhaust on it, which I'm sure Genesis is spending a lot of time and research and development on to make sound incredible. If you didn't know, Genesis has Albert Bierman working for them. Well, Hyundai in general, who is the former head engineer dude of the BMW M Division. Forget his exact title, but if you look at what they're doing with the Hyundai in cars, honestly, really impressive. And if they can add some of that magic to the Genesis MAGMA cars, heck yeah, man. That's all I got to say is heck yeah. So like I said, guys, wanted to touch briefly on all the aftermarket mods I have done to this car. So let's start off with performance-wise, what I've done on the engine. Simply just went with some Takeda AFE cold air intakes. I did a video talking exclusively to these. If you want to check that out, type our angle on the screen. But yeah, so I got these Takeda cold air intakes sitting in here. There's the filters themselves, nice and protected. Moving on from there, everything else is aesthetic that I've done. I did these black wrapping on the door handles. This is something I do on every vehicle I own. I just think it looks really good. So I got that on both the door handles. And then for the windows, I went with a 20% window tint. So also went with the full ceramic, because if you live anywhere that has sun shining, which is, if you live on planet Earth, helps protect your interior. It's not gonna let it fade from some damage. Also keeps you a lot cooler. So yeah, car looks great with 20% window tint. And another thing that's super awesome is I got this Forza Motorsports license plate frame, because you know that adds about 20 extra horsepower to your car. I'm a huge Forza nerd, what can I say? Yeah, that's pretty much everything. Oh, one more thing. I went with the one and only WeatherTech floor mats. I don't know if you could consider that a mod or not, but and I keep forgetting what I've done to this car. I also put in some LED lights that are right here, nice ambient lighting, and I hooked them up to the cigarette lighter right here. Also did a video exclusively talking to that. If you guys want to check out how to install this yourself, super easy. You just have some jank wires running from here. That's about it. Yeah, so aftermarket wise, that's everything I've done to this car. The only thing I have left planned to do in the future is maybe an exhaust mod. I hate how the exhaust sounds on this car. It's just so freaking quiet. So yeah, exhaust mod in the future, but other than that, that's pretty much everything I've done to this car. More aesthetic stuff than performance wise. So yeah. Now just to sum up and give some overall closing thoughts on the Genesis G70, and this is mainly focused toward prospective buyers if you're considering this car. And what I have to tell you is if you're looking for a luxury sports car that is rough around the edges, has a loud engine note, has a loud exhaust note that's really going to get those juices flowing, or if you're looking for a car that has a lot of aftermarket support that you can, put a lot of money into, this is not that car. The G70 is more along the lines of a posh, refined, nice, quiet Mercedes. So again, if you're wanting an exhilarating sports car that's going to make all the performance car noises and something that you can easily mod with readily available aftermarket parts, this is not that car. However, I will say this. If you are wanting an entry-level luxury sports sedan that has all the bells and whistles for an insanely cheap price, this is 100% the car for you. And the reason I say at an insanely cheap price with all the bells and whistles and incredible performance is because these G70s, they do not hold their value worth crap at all. You can buy a fully loaded 3.3T 2022 or 2023 model for under $45,000 at this moment. I've even seen some selling for less than $40,000 with less than 10,000 miles, clean title, yada, yada, yada. So take into consideration, this car is nearly $60,000 brand new. In some states, it is over $60,000 brand new when you fully option it out. So considering you can get this car for $45,000 and less and just after a year or two later, that is an absolute steal and an absolute bargain. And there's literally no other car on the market that is going to give you that much value for your money, like new used condition at that price. And for that reason, if you're a prospective buyer and you're still watching this video at this point, leave a comment if you are. I do not recommend buying this car brand new. You're going to lose so much money unless, money's just not a problem or option for you. You do you. But buy this car certified pre-owned, save yourself over $20,000. In addition to that, if you buy this car certified pre-owned, the 10-year powertrain warranty passes on to you, as well as a 6-year electrical warranty. So again, value for your money and performance-wise tech features, you absolutely cannot find anything that even compares to this car at that price point. So yeah, that's going to sum up my 1-year owner's review of the 2023 Genesis G70. Just giving my 2 cents on the car. If you enjoyed this video, appreciate you dropping a comment below and also leaving a like. That is the number one thing that helps me as a creator grow and my videos get more views. But that, guys, yeah, thanks for stopping by. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I will continue to post Genesis content in the future. So yeah, hope to see you guys in my future videos. Stay glousy, friends.